Okay, so in this video, it's a bit different. I'm going to be going over every single town in Red Dead Redemption 2 and basically putting them in order from worst to best. And to be honest, with the game that this is, there's no definition of a bad town. All of them are great and they all are great for different reasons. But you know, something has to be last, and at last place, I'll jump right into it, we have Le Gras. I mean, some people could say it's not even a town because there's only a few basically abandoned huts. They're not actually abandoned, there's actually quite a few people there. But the main concept of this town is basically fishing. That is the main reasoning for it, and obviously it's in that swampy area just above, just north of Saint Denis. And that whole area is obviously not the greatest place in terms of living. But when you do go through it, a lot of the times I see it, it's just in passing, and I'm just passing through that area from Saint Denis. But you know, the times when I have gone through it, I guess it isn't many, and it's probably the one that I visit the least on the list. That's not the only reason why it's the lowest. It's mainly just because there's not a lot to it, there's not a lot to offer, but as I mentioned earlier, it is mainly fishing, and that's why it's quite unique because it has the bait and tackle store, which only sells fishing products, so like bait for example, and that's the only place I believe where they have a bait and tackle store in terms of the towns. All the other towns don't have one, so it's quite cool that it does have that little own area. And then apart from that, it is just very small, and obviously there's not many buildings to it, and it is good to do fishing though, I will admit that. Just the whole scenery, of course it's surrounded by all the alligators and crocodiles and stuff, but it's like somewhat cozy for some reason, and as you can see by the gameplay, it is quite relaxing, just, you know, sitting in maybe at night time or at the sunset and doing a bit of fishing. But yeah, Le Gras, as much as I do enjoy it for the times I have been there, it's going to be last on the list because it doesn't really have a lot to offer apart from the fishing. Next up on the list, another one that maybe some people might not even call a town. It's more of like a small farm with different pens, and that is Emerald Ranch, which of course does connect to Emerald Station as well, but in terms of the actual town area, it is again quite small, and the majority of it is really just pens of animals, and that is mainly like the lore behind it. I think one time it was thriving with cattle, the owner was like mistreating the workers. So it is cool in that sense in terms of the story and the lore of it all. But as an actual gameplay side and the actual town as a whole, when you do visit it, it does have, again, a lot of like abandoned buildings and stuff because it's not as good as it once was. And it's mainly just used just to keep the cattle there and stuff. It does have a fence, which is basically where you sell and buy stuff. But apart from that, I think that might be it. In terms of the actual town bit, that is the only thing that it does offer. So again, it just doesn't really, there's no purpose to go there. Apart from, it does look nice, I guess. I do like the big sort of house at the top of it all, and then it is also good, I suppose, with just, you know, stealing the animals if we wanted to do that. The thing is, because it's not as thriving as it once was, the actual owners, they don't really, I mean, first of all, there's not a lot of people there, and also they don't really care that much. But again, it is a nice little place just in passing, and also what makes it a bit better is that you do connect it to the actual station as well, which of course does mean that a train is going to pass through, so it's great in that sense. It does have that to offer, as well as the post office, and I think there's also some games as well, so you can do like dominoes for example. I mean, I guess it is sort of not connected to the town in a way, you do have to walk a bit I suppose, but I thought you might as well put it all together. But again, of course I do like it. Next up we have Armadillo, which I mean in Red Dead 1 or just Red Dead, of course there was way more to it and way more activity going on and just more thriving, whereas now it's the complete opposite. It's very depressing due to of course the cholera outbreak, I believe that's how you say it. As you can see, all the posters on there saying to stay away or just to drink boiled water, or after it's been boiled, sorry. And there's very few NPCs here, and if you do bump into them, then they will be like suffering and coughing for example. And then there's like the buildings of them having to make coffins and stuff and burial sites, so it just is a depressing place. And it is cool because it has that really iconic like Wild West town, and I thought there'd be more of them, but because it's just become so bad and depressing, and a lot of the stuff, for example the general store has stayed open, which is good, and the saloon is open, but again it's just very dull, and you'd much rather just go to a different saloon. But as I said, it is in the heart of the desert and it is a Wild West town, so that's what's cool about it. I just wish there was more to it and it wasn't so, you know, failed after the massive outbreak. Another thing is that of course it's in the desert, so it's a massive open landscape, it's its own little place, but because of what's happened and because it being so open, I don't really see a need in going there that much, especially in the story, because of course you do suffer yourself. You can't even go there in the main story, otherwise you will get hurt. hurt, but I think in this gameplay I'm using mods, so that's where you can see that little effect going on every few seconds because I'm getting hurt by the cholera. And I am going to mix like online and story in this list as well. I'm not just basing it on only story. So it is quite good for like shootouts, for example, because it is quite open and you can like stay on the top of rooftops and stuff. So I do want to include that as well. But next up we have Annesburg, which is the main like coal mining town. Also kind of depressing in a way because it's just full of like, you know, really bad conditions and there's lots of smoke in the clouds. As soon as you look up, the smoke is everywhere. Oil spills in the water on the side. But that does make it quite cool because it's just so unique, you know. I'm not basing them on, you know, where I'd live, and that's why it is quite detailed in that sense. Of course you have the main train running through it all, and there's like, I think there's multiple tracks, there's like 3 tracks running through it all, but again that sort of takes up most of the town itself, and then you have the buildings on the side. It seems like every time I go there though, the train is always there, but it does offer quite a bit more than the other towns. So there's like a post office, there's a gunsmith, I think there used to be a general store and now it's closed, and just the whole area, it is quite a cool area where it is. It's like near the coast, the northeast of the map, and that's probably why I put it a bit higher, and it does offer a bit more than the other towns, but still not anything crazy to the point where I'd always be there. But again, I do like it. Next up, which I think is quite similar in a way because they're so close together, and that is Van Horn, which is kind of small to be honest, but it's not like a welcoming place because it's basically the lore behind this, and it's quite a good amount to it, and you can really go and look into it more, but it's now filled with mostly outlaws just coming through, and that's why it's very easy to sort of get into conflict and into duels as well. So it is unique in that sense, and it just seems like you're always gonna get into a fight when you go there. But when you put that to the side, it is quite like a nice place to be honest, because it has that lighthouse. That's another unique aspect. It's a great surrounding area where you can just watch the boats go past, and it's somewhat peaceful if you forget about the rest. But again though, it does have like abandoned buildings and stuff, and it's full of outlaws, so in terms of what it offers, there's really not a lot, and that's really like one of the main reasons why it's going to be low. It has good aspects in the rest of it all, but in terms of what it does offer, there's not a lot to it. And then moving on to Tumbleweed, which some people might, you know, be surprised it's quite high, but a lot of the main reason for this is that it's a great fighting area in online. I had some great shootouts there because it's so open, it's like an open playing field, and there's great use of cover for the shootouts as well. So that may be slightly biased, but it's so far away as well, it's the furthest point, and it's also quite abandoned, not as much as Armadillo, but it's sort of going towards that point, but it has way more to offer, even though it is quite far away in the desert. So there's like a general store, there's a stagecoach, a saloon, there's some butchers I believe, and a few more bits. So although it feels like it's just scattered buildings in a desert, if you actually go there quite often, which you may not do, and maybe that's why it's low on people's lists because it's so far away, but if you do, there's actually way more to it. And as I mentioned earlier, with it being sort of going towards abandoned, you can even see that with like the main guy sort of protesting about it, as you can see in the gameplay, saying like it's still great, and it may be still great now, but in the years to come it will slightly decline. But yeah, I think it's in a way quite underrated. It's way better than Armadillo of course because of what happened, and yeah, between those two I do definitely prefer going to this one. And although I don't go there that much, it is fun when I do, and there's a lot to it if you look into it. So coming into the top 5 we have Rhodes, which is honestly probably a beautiful looking place, maybe the most, and that's why it's so high on the list. It has like the dirt roads as well, with that like sort of orange sandy effect. I know that's quite a small detail, but it's the only town with that sort of terrain, and it's just filled with different services like a saloon, there's a general store, there's a butcher's, a gunsmith, there's sheriff buildings as well, and a bunch of other stuff. So it's great for that reason, and just in the area where it is, that's a great area. It's sort of like tucked away in like the southeast with Flatiron Lake, and then there's Braithwaite Manor and St. Denis just surrounding it all. So it has a great place where it is, and of course it does play a big role in the story, so there's that reasoning, and there's way more lore to it because of the whole Braithwaite and Grey feud, if you don't know, and it's sort of like a conflict between the two families, and that's what is unique to it, and it does add to that lore. And you do hear the NPCs going on about it and stuff, and it's another one where you may run into a lot of conflict in the area, a lot of fights breaking out for example. So in a way it does have a bit of everything, but there is just the other towns which I do prefer more in terms of the actual town itself and the layout. It is beautiful, it looks amazing, there's so much detail to it, and I think the main thing is just the area where it is. I love where it's placed, and to be honest there's not really going to be much difference in these areas on the list now. well. Like, I love them all. And next up we have Blackwater, which is one of the ones where it could be before or after Rhodes. I don't really know. I like them both sort of equally, but I just see this as like a toned down version of Saint Denis because it's like fairly modern, and those two are probably the most modern towns in the whole game. It's very open streets though, like very open, and it has quite like a strict layout, so there's not many sort of like small alleyways or like nooks and crannies, for example, compared to Saint Denis, and that's what takes it down a bit just because it's so open. But it is, again, it's great for shootouts, just like in Tumbleweed, you know, just on the top of rooftops, and again, great for parkour as well, you know, just jumping from roof to roof. It actually has like, you know, places to do that, like it has, you know, planks of wood, for example, and ladders. It's sort of promoted to do that. I think maybe if I go here more, I don't go here that often. It is like sort of far away, I suppose, but it has a great look out to Flatiron Lake again. It is a cool area. But yeah, maybe just because I don't go here as often, it's maybe not why it's higher. But yeah, I think if it had a bit more to it in terms of the actual layout, if it had a bit more alleyways, or rather than it being so open, and that's what Saint Denis does great. But in terms of the services, it has tons of stuff, basically everything you need. And it is fairly big as well, so there is a lot to do when you are here. And next up we have Strawberry, which is definitely one of the best small towns on the list. And I love the layout of this. It's one of my favourites because it's in like a circle, and you basically do a loop round each time, like in a circle, or I guess more of like a square, because it has that river running through, and then it has the big watermill as well. So that's why you can't actually go there, because there's a river there. So in the middle it's sort of shut off, and then it has the circle loop around. I just find that quite cool, and it makes it become a bit more sort of crammed, like compared to obviously Blackwater, where it's massive open area in terms of the massive streets. These are tiny, and it seems like you're always like bumping into people, and it's always so close together, which is good because it like makes it feel so alive. And it's just, there's so much detail, and again, a great area to it. It's sort of surrounded by hills, it's sort of in a ditch, I suppose. And yeah, the terrain is great. But I think the main thing is the architecture. I love the buildings. Of course, they're all wooden, but just the detail they put into them, it seems like every single one is so different to the other. And it has that great bridge going through as well, which is so well built. And it really is just a great area, you know, surrounded by trees and the hills, as I mentioned, and the river. But next up, we have Saint Denis, which you may have seen this coming. And the main reason for this is that it does have everything you need, and it is massive. I mean, there's so much to it, you can really get lost in it, way more than, let's say, Blackwater, because I guess, well, not only is it bigger just in the scale of it, but also there's so many small little alleyways that you can really hide into, and you may miss if you walk past. And you know, you can go down an alleyway and it will just open out into this really big place that you didn't even see because it's surrounded by buildings. And that's what's great about it, is that you can really get lost, and you can sink hours of time into this one location. And of course, I love the modern style to it, which you don't always see in, you know, like a Wild West game. And it's great that they had, you know, one location where it is so modern. For its time anyway. And that's what's great, is that they can do way more in terms of the buildings. They're not just limited to wood. So, you know, like the cinema is great. It has all those lights on it, which you never see, and it's such a cool thing to see in this setting because you're not used to it. And one of the things I love about this is the parkour as well. If you haven't done it, I do recommend it. You can really do like a massive parkour route with like your friends, for example. So I guess there's a bit of like online bias there, but even just, yeah, just general shootouts in the story. I mean, even that one mission, you know, if you know, you know, like you're on top of the roof and you're running and you're jumping, it's insane because you can really, they do connect a lot of the rooftops and you can get basically anywhere. But of course, some areas are cut off, and then it has the train running through, so it's great for, you know, transport. You can get to and from anywhere when you are there, and it makes it even better when it turns to nighttime because of all the lights. And you know, like the shiny metal areas, because there's going to be that because it's more modern. So it's great for lighting and reflections and everything, and it just looks great. And it is like one of the most detailed areas in the game, and so varied and versatile. And that's why going into the number one spot we have, and I think you see this coming, is Valentine. And the main reason for that, I mean, Saint Denis, you could say it has the most to offer, and it probably looks the best because there's so much variety to it. But you can't beat the good old, you know, Wild West town of Valentine. It's a bit like rough around the edges because it really is just a bunch of buildings, wooden buildings in like a farm area. But because of just how simple it is, that's what makes it good. You know, it's similar to like a Wild West town of Armadillo, but of where it is and where it's located, and because it's filled with life, that's what makes it the best. I've definitely spent the most time here because it's just great to just genuinely walk around. And you know, the saloon is probably the best saloon in the game. It's just like your typical Wild West saloon, and it just is the definition of like a cowboy town. And again, for how sort of small it is quite small in terms of like, it is a few buildings, but then the farm does open it out a bit more. And then you have the train station as well. And that's why it does have a lot to offer, even though it is fairly small. So it just has everything you need, but just a scaled down version. So it has, you know, the general stores and the saloon and the train station. It actually has another general store in like the medic bit. And then there's a sheriff station. There's stables as well. Rather than like obviously Saint Denis, it has a lot more. But you can get all of that in this small Wild West town, which is great. And that's what everyone wants. And that's why I think for me and a lot of other people can agree that Valentine is the best town in the game. But with all these towns, I love them for different reasons, as I've said. It's usually if it offers a bit more, or where it's located, or the story and the lore behind it. Just a mixture of everything, and also online. And that's why I think a lot of people, you know, won't be mad at this list, hopefully not. And it's fun doing a video like this where it's a bit, you know, more laid back, and obviously I don't do a actual in-depth review on the game, but it's just a small little topic because I love this game and I thought it would be fun to talk about. So let me know if you want to see anything else like this, and if you didn't enjoy this video, then let me know by tapping that like button down below. And if you enjoyed single player and also multiplayer games as well, then you can subscribe to the channel if you'd like to. I have multiple playlists on a selection of games. If you want to support me any further, then you can become a member of the channel at either level 1 or 2 to gain access to various perks. Thank you all for the support and watching until the very end. And that was every RDR2 town ranked from worst to best, and bye bye.